I'm 99 years old. After I said $500,000 is enough to be free forever, thousands of people ask me the same question. Charlie, is that really enough? What about inflation? What about health care? What about emergencies? What if the market crashes? What if I live to 95? Fair questions, all of them. Here's the truth I didn't tell you. 500,000 can make you free, or it can make you broke. The difference isn't the number. It's whether you avoid 5 critical mistakes that destroy most people's freedom. I've watched people with 500,000 live like kings for 30 years. I've watched people with 2 million die broke in 5. Same math, different outcomes. Why? Because of these 5 mistakes. So let me answer the real question everyone is asking. Is 500,000 enough, or do you need 1 million? The answer is, it depends. It depends entirely on whether you make these mistakes or not. I'm about to die. I don't have time to sugarcoat anything. So I'm going to show you exactly what separates the people who retire free from the people who retire broke. 5 mistakes, that's all. Avoid them, and 500,000 is a fortune. Make them, and 1 million won't save you. Let's begin. Before I show you the 5 mistakes, let me tell you why this matters so much. Most financial advice is designed to keep you working. Financial advisors make money when you keep investing. They make nothing when you stop. So they tell you that you need 5 million, 10 million, some impossible number that keeps you on the treadmill forever. That is a lie. A lie designed to keep you anxious and paying fees. The truth is simpler. Freedom has a number, and that number is much lower than you think. But, and this is crucial, that number only works if you don't sabotage yourself. I've seen brilliant people destroy their retirement with stupid mistakes. I've seen average people build empires with simple discipline. Intelligence isn't the variable. Behavior is. So here are the 5 mistakes. Listen carefully, because I guarantee you're making at least one of them right now. Mistake 1, confusing the number with freedom. Mistake 2, calculating the wrong burn rate. Mistake 3, ignoring inflation's compound effect. Mistake 4, having no buffer for crisis. Mistake 5, thinking the game ends when you hit the number. These 5 mistakes are why some people with 500,000 are free and some people with 2 million are slaves. Let me explain each one. This is the foundational error, the mistake that makes all other mistakes possible. People think freedom is a number. It's not. Freedom is a ratio, capital divided by desires. If you have $1 million but need 2 million worth of lifestyle, you're poor. If you have 500,000 but only need 200,000 worth of lifestyle, you're rich. It's arithmetic, not philosophy. Let me show you what this looks like in real life. I knew 2 men who retired in the same year, same age, 62, same starting point, $500,000 each. 10 years later, one was still free. The other was back at work, broken. The first man, let's call him Harold, lived in a small town in Nebraska. His house was paid off. Modest place, 3 bedrooms, nothing fancy. He drove a 10-year-old truck. His wife grew vegetables in the backyard. They took 1 trip a year, usually camping, sometimes a cabin by a lake. Harold's burn rate was $28,000 a year. At $500,000, he had roughly 18 years of runway, assuming 0 returns. With even modest investment returns, he could live forever. The second man, let's call him Richard, moved to Phoenix. Sunny weather, golf courses, nice restaurants. He bought a bigger house because his kids might visit. They didn't. He joined a country club because that's what retired people do. He leased a new car every 3 years because he'd earned it. Richard's burn rate was $72,000 a year. At $500,000, he had 7 years, maybe less if the market dipped. The market dipped. 2008 happened. Richard panicked, sold at the bottom, locked in losses. By 2012, he was back at work. Part-time at first, then full-time. He never retired again. Harold, he barely noticed the crash. His expenses were so low that his portfolio, even reduced, still covered everything. He kept living his quiet life. When the market recovered, so did his nest egg. He died at 87, still free, still happy. Same number, same starting point, completely different outcomes. The difference wasn't luck or intelligence. The difference was understanding that freedom isn't a number. Freedom is a ratio. Harold got the ratio right. Richard got it catastrophically wrong. So when people ask me, is 500,000 enough or do I need 1 million? I ask them a different question. What's your burn rate? What's your ratio? If your burn rate is 30,000 a year, 500,000 is a fortune. If your burn rate is 80,000, 1 million isn't enough. The number doesn't matter. The ratio does. Most people spend their entire lives chasing a bigger number when they should be working on a smaller denominator. That's the first mistake. Don't make it. This mistake is sneaky. It's the one that catches people who think they've done everything right. Here's what happens. You sit down, you calculate your expenses, you come up with a nice, clean number, 40,000 a year, let's say. You feel good, you've done the math, you're responsible, except you're wrong, because you calculated your imaginary burn rate, not your real one. Real burn rate includes everything. The stuff you plan for and the stuff you don't. And the stuff you don't is what kills you. Let me give you a list of things people forget. Healthcare. After 60, healthcare costs explode. In America, a 65-year-old couple will spend an average of $300,000 on healthcare during retirement. That's not a typo, 300,000. If you're not accounting for 8 to 15,000 a year in healthcare costs, you're living in fantasy. Home maintenance. Houses break, roofs leak, furnaces die, water heaters explode. If you own a home, you need to budget at least 1% of the home's value per year for maintenance. $200,000 home, $2,000 a year minimum. And that's if nothing major goes wrong. Family emergencies. Your adult child loses their job. Your grandchild needs braces. Your sister gets sick. These aren't hypotheticals, they're guarantees. Over a 30-year retirement, you will have family emergencies. If you haven't budgeted for them, they'll come from your capital. Lifestyle creep. You think you'll spend less in retirement. Most people spend more, at least in the first 10 years. You have time now. Time to travel, time to eat out, time to take up hobbies. All of that costs money. The fantasy is sitting on a porch doing nothing. The reality is doing more than you ever did while working. Let me show you the math of this mistake. Imaginary burn rate, 40,000 a year. Feel safe, right? 500,000 at 40,000 is 12 and a half years of runway. Add investment returns, and you're probably fine forever. But let's add reality. Healthcare, add 10,000. Home maintenance, add 4,000. Family emergencies, averaged over time, add 5,000. Lifestyle creep, in early retirement, add 6,000. Real burn rate, 65,000. Not 40, 65. Now what happens? 500,000 at 65,000 is 7.7 years. Not 12 and a half, 7.7. That's almost 5 years stolen by one mistake. The mistake of calculating what you hope to spend instead of what you'll actually spend. This is why people who think they're safe at 500,000 end up broke at 70. They didn't plan wrong. They calculated wrong. The fix is simple but uncomfortable. Track your actual spending for 1 year before you retire. Every dollar, every expense, no categories of miscellaneous, no rounding down, real numbers, then add 20%. That's your buffer for the things you'll forget. That's your real burn rate. Is 500,000 enough? Only if you know your real number. Most people don't. That's mistake number 2. Everyone knows about inflation. Few people understand it. They think inflation is a small annual tax, 3%, maybe 4%. Annoying, but manageable. What they don't realize is that inflation compounds. And compounding, when it works against you, is devastating. Let me show you what 3% inflation actually does over time. Today, $500,000 buys $500,000 worth of life. That's obvious. In 10 years, at 3% inflation, 500,000 buys 372,000 worth of life. You've lost 128,000 in purchasing power. Not because you spent it, because inflation ate it. In 20 years, 500,000 buys 276,000 worth of life. You've lost nearly half. And if it buys 206,000, you've lost 60% of your purchasing power in 30 years. This is the silent thief, the one most people never see coming. I knew a woman, school teacher, retired in 1985. She had saved diligently her whole life, $200,000. Back then, that was serious money. She calculated that at $10,000 a year, she had 20 years of safety. She was wrong. By 2005, 20 years later, $10,000 had the purchasing power of about $4,000 in 1985 terms. Her expenses had more than doubled. Healthcare, property taxes, groceries, everything cost more. She didn't run out of money because she spent too much. She ran out because she failed to account for inflation's compound effect. Her number was right in 1985. It was catastrophically wrong by 2005. So what's the solution? You must invest to beat inflation. Cash in the bank is not saving. It's slow losing. A savings account paying 1% while inflation runs at 3% means you're losing 2% per year in real terms. The math is brutal. 100,000 in a savings account, losing 2% real per year, becomes 82,000 in purchasing power after 10 years, 67,000 after 20 years. You're getting poorer while your bank balance stays the same. This is why I've always said, the safest thing you can do with money is not keep it safe. True safety requires growth. True safety requires investments that beat inflation over time. Is 500,000 enough? Only if it grows. If it sits in cash, it's shrinking every single day. And over a 30-year retirement, shrinking by 60% is the difference between freedom and poverty. Don't let inflation compound against you. That's mistake number 3. This is the mistake that kills people who did everything else right. They saved, they invested, they kept their burn rate low, they beat inflation, and then the market crashed. And they had to sell at the bottom. Game over. Let me explain why this happens. Imagine you have $500,000 invested in a diversified portfolio. Stocks, bonds, the usual mix. You're withdrawing $40,000 a year to live on. The math works. 8% average return, 4% withdrawal. You're growing at 4% per year. Beautiful. Then 2008 happens, or 2020, or whatever crash comes next, because crashes always come. Your portfolio drops 40%. 500,000 becomes 300,000, but you still need 40,000 to live. So you sell. You sell when prices are lowest. You lock in losses that would have recovered if you could have waited. This is called sequence of returns risk, and it destroys retirees. I watched this happen in 2008. Hundreds of thousands of people who had planned perfectly, who had done everything right, forced to sell at the worst possible moment. They weren't greedy. They weren't stupid. They just had no buffer. A man I knew, solid portfolio, diversified, low expenses, but 100% invested, no cash reserve. When the crash came, he needed money for property taxes, health care, basic living. He sold stocks at 50% down. By the time the market recovered, he didn't have enough shares left to recover with it. His neighbor, similar situation, but different approach. He kept 2 years of expenses in cash. Boring, safe, boring. When the crash came, he lived off the cash. He didn't sell a single share. 3 years later, his portfolio was back. 5 years later, it was higher than before. Same crash, same market, completely different outcomes. The buffer made the difference. So what's the right buffer? I've always recommended 2 to 3 years of expenses in safe, liquid assets, cash, treasury bills, money market funds, something that won't drop when stocks drop. Yes, this cash will lose to inflation, slowly. That's the cost. The benefit is that you never have to sell stocks at the bottom, and that benefit is worth far more than the cost. Think of it this way. The buffer isn't wasted money. It's insurance for your compounding. It protects the thing that protects you. Is $500,000 enough? Yes. If you have a buffer that lets you survive crashes without selling, no. If a market drop forces you to liquidate at the worst possible time, the buffer isn't optional. It's the thing that makes everything else work. That's mistake number 4. This is the mistake that surprises people the most. And it might be the deadliest. You work for decades. You sacrifice. You save. You finally hit 500,000 or 1 million or whatever your number is. And you think, I made it. The game is over. I won. That's exactly when the game begins. Because accumulating money and keeping money are 2 completely different skills. And most people are only good at one. I've watched people spend 30 years building a nest egg, then destroy it in 5. Not through bad luck, through bad decisions, through thinking the hard part was over when actually the hard part was just beginning. Let me tell you the 3 ways people destroy their freedom after they've earned it. First, bored money. You've spent decades in accumulation mode, watching numbers grow, making decisions, feeling engaged. Then you retire, and suddenly you're supposed to just sit there, do nothing, let it compound. Most people can't do it. They get bored. They start looking for excitement. They hear about a hot stock, a real estate deal, a business opportunity. Just a small investment, they think, just to keep things interesting. That small investment becomes a big loss. The excitement they craved costs them security they needed. I've seen it 100 times. People who survived decades of market ups and downs, destroyed by boredom and retirement. Second, family pressure. This one is painful because it comes from love. Your adult child needs help with a down payment. Your grandchild needs college money. Your sibling has a business idea that just needs a little capital. These aren't strangers asking. They're people you love. So you help. And then you help again. And again. And slowly, the nest egg that was supposed to last 30 years becomes the family bank that's empty in 10. I knew a man with $800,000 at 65. Plenty for freedom. By 75, he had 200,000. Where did 600,000 go? Kids, grandkids. One loan that was never repaid, then another, then another. He loved his family so much he gave them his independence. That's not generosity. That's self-destruction with a kind face. Third, one more bet. This is the classic, the final gamble that ruins everything. You have enough. You know you have enough. But there's this one opportunity. Sure thing. Can't lose. And if it works, you'll have more than enough. You'll be rich, not just comfortable. You'll prove something. So you bet, and you lose. And suddenly, the freedom you spent a lifetime building is gone. One decision, one moment of greed disguised as ambition, and it's over. I've seen this destroy more retirements than market crashes, health problems, and inflation combined. The enemy isn't external, it's internal. It's the inability to recognize when you've won and stop playing. Is 500,000 enough? Yes, but only if you can protect it from yourself. Only if you can resist boredom, family pressure, and the temptation of one more bet. Hitting the number isn't the end. It's the beginning of a new game. A game where the only way to lose is to keep playing when you've already won. That's mistake number 5. The final mistake, the one that takes everything. Let me tie this all together. Mistake 1, confusing the number with freedom. Freedom isn't a number. It's a ratio. Capital divided by desires. Get the ratio right, and 500,000 is a fortune. Get it wrong, and 2 million isn't enough. Mistake 2, calculating the wrong burn rate. Your imaginary burn rate is what you hope to spend. Your real burn rate includes health care, home maintenance, family emergencies, and lifestyle creep. Add 20% to whatever you think you need. That's closer to truth. Mistake 3, ignoring inflation's compound effect. 3% inflation doesn't feel dangerous, but compounded over 30 years, it cuts your purchasing power by 60%. You must invest to beat inflation. Cash is slow losing. Mistake 4, having no buffer for crisis. Markets crash. If you have to sell at the bottom, you're finished. Keep 2 to 3 years of expenses in safe, liquid assets. The buffer protects your compounding. It's not optional. Mistake 5, thinking the game ends when you hit the number. Accumulating money and keeping money are different skills. Board money, family pressure, and one more bet destroy more retirements than any market crash. Learn to stop playing when you've already won. So, is 500,000 enough, or do you need 1 million? Here's my final answer. 500,000 is enough if you avoid all 5 mistakes. 1 million is not enough if you make them. The number is not what matters. Your behavior is what matters. I've seen people with 300,000 live free for 30 years. I've seen people with 3 million go broke in 5. The difference was never the number. The difference was always the mistakes. I'm 99 years old. I've spent a lifetime watching people chase numbers, bigger and bigger numbers, as if some magic figure would finally bring peace. It doesn't work that way. Peace doesn't come from the number. Peace comes from the ratio and comes from knowing your real burn rate. Some of my friends shared to me that peace comes from understanding inflation, comes from having a buffer. When you understand it, your wisdom will demonstrate to stop playing when you've won. The real question isn't whether 500,000 is enough or whether you need 1 million. The real question is, how many of these mistakes are you making right now? Count them. Be honest. Are you confusing number with ratio? Are you calculating the wrong burn rate? Are you ignoring inflation? Do you have a buffer? Can you stop when you've won? Fix those mistakes, and whatever number you have becomes more powerful. Make those mistakes, and no number will ever be enough. I didn't intend to become a billionaire. I intended to become free. The money was a side effect of good decisions compounded over time. But freedom, independence, peace, that was always the goal. You don't need $1 billion for that. You don't need 10 million. You might not even need 1 million. What you need is the wisdom to avoid 5 predictable mistakes. I've given you that wisdom today. What you do with it is up to you. I'm about to die. This might be the last time I can say this. So let me say it clearly. The goal is not to die with the most money. That's a fool's goal. The goal is to live without asking anyone for permission. That's independence. That's freedom. And that's available to you right now with whatever number you have, if you're wise enough to avoid the mistakes that destroy it. Stop chasing bigger numbers. Start eliminating stupid mistakes. That's the whole game. Is 500,000 enough? It depends on you. Only you. The number doesn't decide your freedom. Your mistakes do. Go fix them.